So I remember going down to the Department of Social Services. By this time, I had already 4 children. I was in my bachelor's degree studying politics, economics, and law. So I'm going up to the desk and I need TANF. I need more help because I got more kids. I know it sounds crazy, but it was what it was. And I remember her saying clearly to me, she said, "We're not going to pay for you to become an attorney." And I said, "Well, what would you pay me to become?" She says, "I don't know, but it's not an attorney." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Aren't you guys set up to help us? Like better ourselves? Like, how am I going to be better if I can't finish school?" She says, "Listen, you could go to school for a CNA, certified nurse's assistant, but we're not gonna pay for you to become an attorney." And it was that moment that I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that there was somebody else orchestrating these rules and these policies. And I said to her, I said, "Who makes these rules?" She just looked at me like, "Girl, hell if I know. I'm here just doing my job." And so I really had to decide between what I could see in that moment. What I could see was $700 cash, hardcore. I could have walked out that office with a card with $700 cash. But coming out of school, I knew that if I did that, I would actually be probably not just poor for the rest of my life. I remember thinking, "You're going to be stuck in this low place." And I felt connected, not just to the classroom, but my purpose. I knew what my purpose was. At least I knew where it was. And I knew that there was, these things that were affirming to me that this is where you belong. I worked in juvenile corrections and everything about my journey said, this is where you belong. So I know for sure, had I come out of school, that would have been a terrible mistake. But I do remember going to this one class. I don't remember what class it was, but I had this professor. She brought me into the back. I said, "Professor, I'm going to have to withdraw from school because I have these children. I have to take care of them. I need cash. And right now, it's not happening." She literally took me by my shirt. She dragged me to the back of the classroom. She said, "You better not come out of school." She says, "Listen, me and my husband," and she gives me this whole system. That's what I pretty much teach all moms. And that's how I was able to escape if it had not been for this system that she basically gave me. And I'm like, that is only going to work for you. You're a white woman. That only works for you. Trust and believe. I did exactly what she said to do. And that's how I was able to get off the system altogether. So, what you're not willing to confront, you're not willing to change. I remember walking out of that social service offices and I looked at the building and I said, one day I'm going to change you. I didn't care if it took 20 years. I knew that I would change the system. And so when I say something like, what you're not willing to confront, you're not willing to change. So the fact that I knew it was inherently wrong to be on the system and let them dictate to me what I could do, how much I could make. I knew it was just totally contradictory to what God was saying because God was calling me to do this. You know what I'm saying? My purpose was here, but the system was like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're gonna put you on this track," which was crazy because I didn't have the stomach for CNA. So if you think about, at that moment, I literally had to make a decision, right? And most of you guys will see, if you guys, become a housing hacker, how we teach you, to solve the economic thirst, how to come off paper because working doesn't work for you. When I started to get these checks in the mail and I called the social services caseworker, they were like, "Yeah, we can't count that money. We don't count that money." And I'm like, "What you talking about, Willis? What you mean you don't count this money?" "Well, it's not income." When I started to see that income was clearly defined by law and these programs carried out the definition of income, and if I knew I knew that I could get my hands on this type of cash, to me it was income, but it really wasn't. If I could get my hand on this type of cash, it was that kind of cash. It was that system. It was that process that helped me get myself and my family out of the whole entire trap. But it was also me sitting down and looking at the fact that this is a problem. I have 4 children, right? And I cannot afford to take care of them myself. That was a problem. I felt like my children was a blessing. Like many of you, you might feel like, all my children are blessings. They're blessings. Who wouldn't really say that about their kids? Um, but I also knew that there was no way I was supposed to have these kids and then just not only be stuck taking care of them on my own. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But at that point, whether I resented the fact that I had to take care of these kids on my own, whether the fathers skedaddled and did something else, it didn't matter. It was my responsibility. When I realized that I could not afford to take care of these children on my own, that became I confronted that. I confronted my ability to, where my wage was minimum wage. It was like $7. What were you doing with $7 with 4 kids? Nothing. Nothing at all. And so I made it my purpose that while I was on purpose, doing God's purpose, that I would develop this skill, reading, writing, whatever that skill is, I would develop it so that I myself would be able to make myself prosperous and get off of the dependency of the system. Because God forbid if anybody came into the office and decided that today we stop in TANF, today we stop in SNAP, food stamps, today there is no more housing. Do you understand that there are countries that don't even get housing? You could go to Africa and go to other countries. They don't have no HUD. That don't even exist. And then we don't understand why this poverty here in America is so correlated with depression and anxiety. You could go to Africa and you'll see a mom with a baby right here strapped up and something on her head smiling. Like it's two totally different mindsets, two totally different cultures, two totally different worlds. She got to smile. She don't even have the apartment that you have. Ain't nobody paying her bills. Ain't nobody giving her food stamps. She got to make and sell to eat. But we got all of that and we still depressed. Because you not on purpose. You have not figured out what it is that God has put you here to do, because you have agreed with this system and this system told you to do this, but God told you to do that. And so, the first step, I believe, is just agreeing. I knew back then that I was more. Despite of what my situation was saying, despite of how people looked at me like I was worth nothing. I was never enough. I wasn't smart enough, pretty enough. I didn't have enough degrees. I didn't have enough money. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't cute enough. I ain't have enough long hair. Whatever. There's always going to be people who's going to tell you that you're not enough. But what do you say? How do you inwardly agree with what God already says about you? And I think that is inherently where you at least start agreement. Lord, and I remember literally saying, let me go find out what God says about me, because this is conflicting. And I remember going to the Bible, or I don't know, I know we had internet back then. I ain't that damn old. And I remember just looking, and I had to literally say, what does God say about me? And I had to look at every scripture. And I had to remember saying those scriptures every single day. I said it until I felt it. I said it until I believed it. And once I believed it, then I knew there was more. Now that I agreed, now I'm like, okay, so there's more. What's the more? Okay, solving that economic thirst. You are in a situation right now, you are in housing more than likely, and you're stuck. Agree with the more. I want more. I want the next step. Okay. That's why we set up this community. It's $3 a month. We are not robbing the bank here or getting rich. This is our way of giving back at a price, because you got to pay for something. What you're not willing, what you won't pay for, you won't pay attention to. And for many people, they'll pay for it and still be doing something else because it's not enough. But for some of you guys, real talk, this is all you really could afford. And so here you go. Agree that you want more. Come into the Hacking Housing community, and then figure out and then be committed. Be committed to yourself, to your family. I want you to look at your children when they go to bed at night. I don't care how old they are. You got to look at them and say, do they deserve you to fight for them? Do they deserve you to put aside all of what you think should be happening or all what you don't have? Do they deserve for you to fight this fight? This fight of self-sufficiency, this fight of self-reliance and financial independence for you. They deserve that. They don't deserve no Section 8 apartment. You can't leave them your EBT card. They deserve more. And I need you to push past your unbelief, push past your doubt. I don't care what happened. I remember there was a story, and I have heard this thing so many times. On one hand, there was a young girl, I'm going to just call her Felicia. And we were talking, and I was just really teeing up possibilities. And I was telling her, I was like, listen, you know, you could be doing this, and if we did this and moved this here, and you went to school and did this and you did that. And she was like, and she saw it, and then she just bursted out in tears. And I'm like, girlfriend, what's wrong? Why are you crying? She says, because my life is so messed up. I don't even believe that anything good can happen to me. And that's when I was like, whoa. So you've had a bunch of unforeseen circumstances, step after step. It's like you can't win for losing. You can't win. Every time you go in 2 steps forward, you 5 steps back. It seems like clockwork. And I remember having moments like that where I was like, I'm literally going to go out of my mind. I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go effing crazy here. And I remember very clearly that guy said the enemy was after your love walk. And I was like, what? Why? And then, you know, loving no matter what, guarding my heart because it affected everything I did. That became my next pursuit. But that's a whole, that, you know, that's a video. I'm sure there's another video around, you know, guarding your heart because it affects everything you do. I can promise you, love, if you are out here on YouTube and you are listening, you don't need money. Money is not going to solve your problem. I thought it was. I thought it would. I thought if I was married, that's why I married an abusive man initially. My first husband was an abusive man. Anything because of what I was seeing with my eyes. You know, this image and mirage of what other people had, comparing myself to what other people had. You know, it just led me down just darker paths. And so ultimately, if you're thinking, I don't even know where to start, you have a community, you have family, and we are all moms from all over the world that have one thing in common. We want to be free. We want to make more money and we want more time. And we are working our way towards doing that. So, um ultimately, I would say confront the fact and be honest with yourself that I can't afford my lifestyle. I can't even afford to be poor. I can't afford to be broke. I can't even afford, if the government came in and took away all of this stuff today, I would be in the streets. You need to admit that. You need to confront that so that now you can change that. All right. So I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Hope that was helpful.